Welcome back to this latest episode of Japan's Top Business Interviews. I'm your host, Dr. Greg Story, President, Dale Carnegie Tokyo Training. My special guest today is Joerg Bauer, who is the Representative Director for Heidelberg here in Japan. Joerg, thank you.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure.
Heidelberg, people may know the town, named from Germany.
Yeah.
They may not know the firm, and which you just told me before actually originated in the city of Heidelberg. So maybe for people at home listening to this, watching this, tell us a little bit about the business. What businesses are you in? Because I know it's more than one business. So tell us a bit about the Heidelberg background.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, Heidelberg is actually providing software, machinery, consumables to companies who produce packages, books, or brochures. So that is not small office equipment. This is real heavy-duty stuff. Such a machine can be easily 30, 40 meters long, few million euro worth.
And how many
the money.
Tons of weight?
Yes, and several tons, easily 30, 40 tons as well. But also we have smaller equipment and also, as I said, the software that is required to come from a PDF. Everybody knows a PDF document. And when you print it out at home or in your office, that is one opportunity. But when you want to have it professionally be printed, maybe 500 books or 1,000 books, 10,000 books, then you normally go to a professional printing company. And these kind of companies we provide with our solutions here in Japan and worldwide.
And the firm has been in Japan quite a long time, I think.
Yes, we will celebrate 100 years next year, actually.
Congratulations.
Thank you very much. So we had the pleasure with the original family business from Japan, being the dealer the classical way. And 25 years ago, the headquarter took over 100% of the shares.
So for 75 years, it was through the dealerships?
It was actually until the oil crisis in the 70s.
Okay.
Then Heidelberg took over 30%. And another dealer, East Asiatic company, Copenhagen, took over the other 30% because the original family had, during the oil crisis, a little bit of cash flow difficulties. And then in 1999, there was a merger with another company, which Heidelberg headquarter acquired, and then it became the now known Heidelberg Japan KK.
And you mentioned to me that this building we're in, your headquarters, is purpose-built.
Yes.
To take all that. I had a nice tour downstairs of the machinery.
Yes.
It's very heavy, and there's some full-scale equipment down there. It's serious equipment, I would say. Serious equipment. So that means you've been in this building for quite a long time too, haven't you?
Yes, actually now 25 years. In December it will be. And the showroom, as we call it, or test or demo center, is essential. Maybe for the very big and specialized equipment, a Japanese decision maker might easily jump into an airplane and fly over 14 hours. But we have to say that serious competitors are coming out of this country. And to compete with these competitors, we need to be able to show, to demonstrate, and even to test customer-specific applications here in the showroom.
Well, it's very impressive, I've got to say that. Amazing. And you've been with the company forever.
Yes, so to say. I started as a student, as I just explained, but now really with a working contract is 36 years. I've been in a lot of different roles.
If you add in when you started as a student, how long would it be with Heidelberg?
Maybe 38, 39 years, yes, if I count everything.
I mean, you're a rare bird these days, people jumping around from companies. I mean, I've leapt around from company to industry, actually even worse than that, but you've been in the same industry, same company for a very long time. But your time in Japan too has been quite long.
Yes, actually, out of the 36 years, I'm now, depends on how you count, let's say the second time now, in total 26 years, 27 years in Japan.
So the majority of Heidelberg times have been here.
Yes.
And, you mentioned you're an engineer by training, and then you're working for the company, I guess, in Europe. How did it come about that you came to Japan? How did that work?
Yeah, I studied electronics, data processing, and during my studies already, that was middle of the 80s, end of the 80s, Japanese fuzzy logic, and some other topics came up in electronics and semiconductor manufacturing. So I read a little bit about Japan. But then I started at Heidelberg in the, it was R&D department, but actually training service technicians on the electronic systems of our machines. And then I got in contact with people from all kinds of countries during that training. So it basically steered my interest in other cultures, in other countries. And then when an offer came to come to Japan, because our Japanese competitors at that time already had been doing some automation, where our local dealer was actually a little bit concerned that they are ahead. So they asked headquarters whether they can send a young engineer to look into that. And in addition, there had been some development projects with Japanese suppliers. So I raised my hand and I got lucky. They have chosen me.
Why did you raise your hand? I mean, you could have gone possibly Europe, America, any number of countries perhaps in the Heidelberg world, but you know.
As I said, I read books about Japan. I was curious. At that time, at least in Germany, it was always said the Japanese manage better, they work better, they work harder. And there was a lot of talk, and I just got interested in. And maybe up today, I have to say that I was not thinking too much about it. I just said, oh, sounds interesting. I raised my hand. And I was single at that time as well. So there was no...
Mobile.
I was very mobile at that time.
And I guess also you probably didn't think, right, I'm going to go to Japan. I'm going to spend 30 odd years there, you know, where it's going to be, yes. I'll be there for the majority of my working life. That's not a thought, right?
No.
I'll be there for a couple of years.
Yes.
I'll go somewhere else or I'll come back,
yes.
right? Yeah.
There was one more trigger that when I looked around in what my colleagues were doing, developing certain electronic boards and control systems, and I saw a few of them doing the same thing for a very long time. I thought, no, that's not my interest. And then I said, I just take the opportunity, and I thought it's maybe for 3 to 5 years. Had been 10 years the first time, and then I returned again to Germany for 6 years and came out again 2008. And since then I'm actually here. But I came as a young engineer, not in a management position, just working with the local people and at local customers now.
And the majority of the business at that time was being, when you got here, was still being done by the dealer?
Yes.
Or, okay, so it wasn't Heidelberg on the ground at that time?
It was called Heidelberg PMT, Printing Machine Trading. Right. So Heidelberg had already its share, and the vice president was already a German colleague, but at the end it was a very Japanese organization. So
what was it like? You know, I mean, people often say that there's a lot of similarities for German culture, Japanese culture, particularly around manufacturing, particularly around thinking about these sorts of things. Did you find that it wasn't that different from your previous experience, or you got to Japan and was like, wow, this is just a completely different world here? How did you feel about that?
For sure, privately and culture-wise, it was totally different. Food was totally different and still is, which I think is good.
Which is good. Nothing wrong with the Japanese food here, that's for sure.
Actually, when it comes to our area worldwide, and when you saw the big machine in the showroom, this type of machines, it's either built by German companies or by Japanese companies. So in that sense, I would say there seems to be this monotsukuri, this fable for high precision mechanical, electrical engineering. That is something that both cultures basically fostered. But the way of working, nevertheless, is for sure different.
So, for example, I'm going to tease us out a bit because I don't know Germany, so I'm talking off the top of my head here, but it seems to me that Germany has quite a hierarchical work culture, and Japan has definitely a hierarchical work culture. So I imagine those things are fairly consistent or similar. Did you find that?
Yeah, I would say so.
So where were the differences, did you find?
I think the work attitude is very good here in Japan. I don't want to talk too negatively about the German way, but even today, I always bring one simple example. When an engineer is working at the customer and he cannot solve the problem, right? Even if time is up, he would not walk away. He would maybe call for help, or he would be keeping going. And that's maybe a little bit different nowadays in in Germany, where also, let's say, union regulations are a little bit different and so on. So the customer focus, I think, is higher in Japan. I think sorry, this is a little bit black and white, right? But in Germany, you might say,
generally speaking,
yes, it's maybe a little bit more looking at the technology, what can be done. And there would be more, for example, for automating our machines. When I look at what happened in the 90s, the Japanese competitors, they looked at certain parts of the machine where the operators had the biggest difficulties to operate it, maybe the washing or the cleaning. And then they automated this piece. And so they went from piece to piece, and at the end they ended up with all kind of different solutions on one machine, but not one system controlling it. Our company went a little bit a different way. It sometimes took longer than to have the specific solution, but at the end it was from one control system and so on. So maybe that is a different approach, more holistic approach from the German side, and a little bit more quicker and faster approach to solve the single customer
Sounds like
problems.
very typically in Japan, sort of Kaizen
Yes.
model of
Yes.
incremental improvement. So you see something, how can we keep that but change it slightly?
Yes.
Whereas maybe you're saying from a German point of view, maybe I'll say, maybe a more macro-logical point of view, okay, system-wise, what can we do here to incorporate the whole thing as one unit rather than bits and pieces and sort of gradual cobbling together stuff? You know, it's just a different way of coming at the same problem. One of the things in Japan that I think is interesting, you know, the idea of no defects in Japan, you know, no mistakes. I don't know about Germany. I'm not sure about the culture there, but say, for example, often you have this with American companies, right? The CFO gets out the pencil and the paper, brings some numbers, and says, bingo, I've got it. If we have a 3% defect rate, we'll make this much money. If we have a 0 defect rate, we'll make this much money. So we'll go for the 3% defect rate, make more money. And everyone says, yeah, that's a good idea. Good, bingo, we'll get paid more. Good. And everyone accepts it. But in Japan, it's like, no, no one's accepting it as, 3% defect rate. Forget it, that's impossible. Customers are going to accept it. The people who work in the company don't like it. How about Germany? Is it that sort of extreme logic also applies there, or is it more like the Japanese side of 0 defects is the goal?
I cannot maybe not speak for the whole German industry, but when I think about our company, we know, and Japan is the 4th biggest market for us worldwide. So we always had the saying, if we can sell it in Japan, we can sell it also in other countries. And that is still true, especially in Asia Pacific. So we also need to be very quality focused. Nevertheless, I think it's not as perfect to real 0. And I would also go down. I see that with our customers, we have that discussion very often. Also on the printer side, they have this 0 defect discussion. But if you have a real 0 defect, your production costs and your productivity really has a certain trouble. So also now we are discussing with our customers, and they discuss with their client, what is a more rational definition of quality. So for example, everybody speaks about color. And color, you can judge the color by looking at this red. I can look at it. A younger person looks at it, and definitely the younger person perceives it as a different red than we both would perceive it. But you can measure color, like a LAB mathematical value, right? And that is not so common in Japan yet. And that's why this quality is always 0 defect and perfect. But what perfect
what does it mean?
That is a challenge, I think, for the printing companies in communication with their clients. But yes, also to us when we deliver something, whether it's a machine, the way we have our call center 24/7, calling back the customer within 12 minutes, whereas the German calling back maybe within 1 hour. So there is a certain higher expectation on performance in service and selling in Japan than in other countries.
Yeah, I love it. I love it in Japan. I get an email, and then I get a phone call.
Yeah.
I haven't even had a chance to answer the email. I've already got the phone call. What about leadership? You Well, here as a young engineer, but you stayed 10 years the first time.
Yes.
So somewhere in that 10-year period, you must have moved into a leadership position,
Yeah,
I guess,
yeah.
right? So what was your first leadership position here?
Actually, maybe that story is a little bit longer. Anyway, as you said, I started out as an engineer supporting certain projects. Then I got an offer from the local organization to work as a sales support engineer, and we did at that time with then the headquarter in Germany of the first Japanese user interfaces, because at that time the user interfaces were rather English. And then we developed that together, and that brought me then into a position when German headquarter asked me, since there is a merger of two companies, at that time was Heidelberg PMT and Linotype Health Japan, to help them to look for a project manager running then the integration and the SAP system rollout. So I helped them to look into it, and we found a few people. Either the people were not good enough, or the people had been very good but very expensive. And throughout the process, I raised my hand and said, guys, I have no clue about SAP, but I know project management. I want to do it. So I got that job, and then I ended up with becoming what was called at that time the IT business manager, having only 4 people at that time, bringing the customer data from the one company into the other. And then later on running the project with German and Japanese consultants, the SAP projects. And that was ended 2002. And then I got an offer back from headquarters to
So here's an interesting question for me. You said before, right? If we can satisfy the Japanese market, we can satisfy anybody else in the world, because no one else is that picky or difficult as a buyer on just about any front, any product, any industry. But what about the flip side? Having worked here, lived here, experienced the Japanese way of doing things, were you able to bring any of that with you back into Germany when you had a management position in Germany working there, or it just didn't translate?
No, for sure, because I had the first leadership position is a big word, but the first position of as a department head, and then also working with other departments, I learned certain things, right? The nemawashi is one topic that you learn at a very early stage, and the communication on making sure that the people know before the official decision is being done where the direction is, and also sense a little bit, read the air, so to say, right? Yeah. So this is something that I learned here, and also on the joking side, I had as a joke. Sorry, maybe the English was not correct. To make a joke, when I came back to Germany, we then moved in a new building, and my department people were discussing about who is allowed to sit where. And then after I had enough discussing them, I showed them a picture of the old Japanese office where the bucho sits on that and the other ones are lined up like that. And I said, if you don't make a decision where you sit by tomorrow, I will make a decision, and I like this one. So that was a joke on one hand, but it worked out. Yeah. Yes.
So I'm just interested, like as you say, the communication aspect, you would possibly say Japan over-communicates. And that's, I think, part of it's that risk aversion, zero problems. If everyone's involved, then we can foresee problems. If everyone's informed, we can foresee problems. We can solve them together. Yeah. No one's surprised. No one's losing face. There's no errors. No one's dropping the ball. It's all going to function smoothly. So there's a huge investment in doing that. Whereas I think in Western culture, I don't know Germany, but in Western culture, it tends to be, right, we get in the room. We're in a boardroom now. We get in the room. We discuss, we debate, we decide, we move on. Next item on the agenda, away we go. Very cold, very logical. It's sort of done not on the spur of the moment, but it's in the meeting room itself. It's not done beforehand like the nemawashi. But how did you think about that when you went back to Germany? Were you finding that, oh wow, it's very direct here in Germany compared to what you're used to in Japan, or you felt, oh, Japanese should be a bit more direct, I realized this is a better way, or how did you think about it?
First, you come immediately to my weak point. So my weak point is that I can be very German, very straight and very direct. I can also be a little bit emotional and pushy, and that sometimes doesn't fit into the Japanese side. So I need to have some colleagues who sometimes balancing out. But also on the German side, it's when I came back to Germany, we had 3 different groups which we needed to unite, one from Kiel, two from Heidelberg. And at the end, it's similar, right? And, you need to get the buy-in from the people, right? So we had some people moving from Heidelberg to Kiel or the other way around to integrate the different groups. So maybe it's not so different from Japan. Yes, the German word Streitkultur, which is like a debate culture. We can a little bit more openly debate and maybe even if the other people watch us, we don't think it's anything strange, right?
Yeah, it's interesting with French culture that, from what I understand, from my French friends, that they say, well, their education system is very much critique and, criticizing and finding the flaws, and it's quite a combative culture in a way, and so they often contrast when they come here to Japan, which doesn't have that at all. But it sounds like Germany's not quite at that level, but maybe not quite on the Japanese collaborative side yet, so it's sort of somewhere in between.
Maybe in the middle, yeah.
In the middle. And what about in terms of when you came back the second time? So what was the position you came back into the second time?
When I came back the second time, we called it the business manager for consumables, CDP and software. Small group, I cannot remember, maybe 8, 9 people at that time. So not directly on the front line to the customer, but supporting the salespeople to get the deals in. And at that time, introducing, for example, the online shop for consumables. So that was my first thing then in 2008. And this was a good example because when we came 2008 and said we want to start the online shop, all the Japanese colleagues said, no, that cannot work in Japan. Online shop in printing companies, that does not work. So it was one of these typical things. We never did that. We don't want to do that. And for sure it worked, right? But
and again, we talk about why online. Why is Japan against online? Why would they think it wouldn't work in a commercial business? And again, I think this comes back to fear of it's going to be a failure, I'll be attached to the failure, I don't want to do that. Any other areas you think they're sort of holding them back from doing something like that?
No, I think that's exactly where it is because normally the normal printing company would buy the consumables from any dealer, and there are hundreds of dealer, 1, 2 people companies as well as very big ones. And we then came finally with the idea, no, we don't want to have the dealer, we want to have the customer directly order online, and then we are in competition to the dealer, right? But if you are in competition to the dealer, you have the problem that the same dealer then proposes the next time maybe the competitor's printing machine when the customer wants one. So there was this fear behind, but they also came up with arguments like, they don't have a computer in the print shop. They don't have a network, right? And I said, how do you think they're getting their data, right? So it was fear on one hand and also not willing to take the risk for something new. But now it's established, it's there. We have even more solutions like that.
It's interesting, isn't it? The fear of the unknown, fear of making a mistake, fear of the new, are real restraints in Japanese business culture in many areas. And so I think sometimes as foreigners, we come from a different background where experimentation, risk-taking, trying new things is like, because we don't have that, oh, if I fail, I'm finished mentality. We have the, well, if it fails, we'll work out what's wrong, we'll fix it, or we'll stop doing that, we'll do something else, so we can bounce back. But from a Japanese point of view, they don't think they can ever bounce back. So that's like, this is a big game. We're putting all the chips in the middle of the table here. I don't want to bet on this one thing here. It might be too risky. And in terms of helping them to get around that fear, what did you find worked well to get them around that fear, to overcome that fear and actually get behind it?
Maybe I was not that considerate at that time, so I was pushing a lot, that is one thing, but on the other hand I also took the responsibility, and we find always a few players who are willing to participate. And then you build the first trial and the first solution with the few people who are willing to go that way. But always, still today, when we try something new, we always need to find a few people in the organization who are willing to come with us to try the new thing. And we make sure that this, even if it fails, does not how to say, has any negative then impact on them, rather being happy that they tried. And normally it works out. Normally it works
I
out.
used to do trade promotion for Australia, and I'd work with a lot of Australian exporters trying to market products here in Japan, solutions in Japan, and we'd be talking to a Japanese client, and we're talking in Japanese, and then it's being interpreted, and I found that if I did the translation, if I did the interpreting, and the Japanese client said, "Oh, it's going to be musukashi," if I interpreted that to the Australians as it's going to be difficult, that didn't faze them at all. Like, difficult? Yeah, so what? Difficult? We'll find a way over. We'll find a way around. We'll find a way under. We'll find a way through. Difficult doesn't stop us. So to stop saying difficult and change it to the client said it's impossible. That'd cause them to stop and really consider what's going on here. So I think that Western idea of not being scared of failure is something that is an advantage for us, I think. And but how to bring the Japanese team with us is the tricky part, because I know in my own company, anytime I bring in something new, instantly you get, "Oh, this is why it's a problem. This is a problem. This is a problem." And you feel as the boss, you think, "Wow, man, everyone's so negative here. What's wrong with them? Come on, you guys. We should be more positive." But that's their protection of the business. That's their protection of the company and how they perceive it. So sometimes we can see that negativity perhaps in a wrong light when it's just a protective light from their side. So how's been an experience with that type of thing?
Yeah, the musukashi is not allowed anymore in our company.
Is it? Right, you don't say that.
My people know already when I hear the word musukashi, that's like a trigger for me to go up and out and say, "Come on, guys."
If you want to be successful as a leader, do the Leadership Training for Managers course. All companies need people who can both manage and lead. Leading people screams out for real skills in communication, dealing with all different types of people, being excellent at innovation, planning, delegation, handling mistakes, doing performance reviews really well, and inspiring and motivating the team. Do the Leadership Training for Managers course now in either Japanese or English. Leading is easy. Getting people to follow is the hard part. That is a great quote from Yogi Berra. Surprisingly, despite the complexities of leading here in Japan, everyone has to work it out by themselves. Foreign leaders want practical, applicable, expert advice. This is now available for the first time in history. Grab your copy of Japan Leadership Mastery on Amazon today and avoid the mystery, trial and error, especially the errors.
Maybe over years we maybe especially the Corona years gave another trigger to come more to the way. If anybody says it's musukashi, it normally means there are some things in the way, some hurdles. And the question is, okay, how can we make it work for us, right? And so today it's still a reflex of a lot of people to say, "Oh, musukashi this." And then I said, and then they already recognize, no, okay, we need to think a little bit.
There should be a big kanban here, so no words musukashi allowed inside this company.
Yes, I always say it's difficult to build a rocket, but it's not anything difficult here. But it's for sure, you can turn it around, right? The positive thing is whenever they say there's musukashi and they have some reasons, you already know what the hurdles are that need to be overcome.
Yeah. What about in that sense, my sort of personality is very driving, adventurous in the sense of trying stuff, testing, pushing, constantly pushing, making it better. And so I also a bit of an ideas guy, so I have a lot of ideas. One of the downsides of that is that sometimes you sort of sit back and you go, wait a minute, all the ideas are coming from me around here. What about these guys' ideas? And you have to remind myself that actually I need them to be involved in the idea generation, not just me, and to get ideas from bottom up. And what have you found works well to get ideas from the team to bottom up the ideas?
Musukashi. That's difficult. No, it's not difficult. I want to rather turn it around and say again, we have the same issue with our customers, right? And the customers always say, I need to ask Gemba to get bottom-up ideas. But what we observe is when you work and I think that's not only for Japanese, I think it would be in Germany the same. You work in a certain environment with a certain process, with a certain tool for years, and then somebody comes suddenly like us and says, oh, here is a new piece of software that does everything automatically for you, and you saw the robot down there and the robot does that. People would get afraid. But Gemba will never come up with these ideas, right?
No.
So
I guess that's also the part of that Kaizen mentality of
yes,
incremental, small improvements, which over time make things more effective, as opposed to holistic
yes,
change
yes.
of perception of what's possible.
You know the Wapro? Wapro, the word processor? This
Wapro?
was, yeah, the Wapro, right?
Yeah,
the Wapro.
Yep.
The Wapro was the last hurdle for the PC to come into the office in Japan. And why was that? Because the Wapro was much better than anything else that was there before for typewriting, right? And then because this thing was there, they said, why should I go now to the PC? Right? And that is very often in Japan when we say we should have, once again, it's the same maybe in Germany, when you say you want to have bottom-up people to be bringing up ideas, bringing up solutions. I think in some environment that works. In other environments, you just get small improvements to what they are always doing. But if you already fell behind, like now we have the Wapro there for 10 years, and after everybody left and right of you is already on network and the PC with Windows, and you are still not there, you want to improve the Wapro further? No. So that is some...
Well, that was Nokia, wasn't it, with the iPhone, right?
Yes.
So Nokia's making an even better Nokia phone, and Jobs turns up and goes, well, here it is. It's all in here. You know, it's like suddenly Nokia's dead in the water. But and also they had, I remember on my phone here in Japan, I had, in the original system, I had apps on my Japanese phone before the iPhone. In Japan, we were way ahead.
Yes,
of
PHS
America.
system, Galapagos, yeah.
Yeah, way ahead.
Yes.
And then suddenly, bingo, the Americans just go, whoop,
Yes.
vault to the top,
Yes.
and they just disappeared completely.
Yes.
Yeah, interesting. So what about, nothing too, at some point you've gone from being a section leader or a division leader to being the boss. So when did you become the total boss here?
In November 2019.
So not that long ago.
Yes, but also again, I was lucky because after my assignment in 2008, later on I became the service head because the service head retired and they were looking for a service head. And then I became sales head for 3.5 years. So it was all planned. So in that sense, I could develop myself in all these different roles, and it was always nicely agreed and planned. Maybe the service head that came as a surprise. I did not want to do it because service is not a nice business. Right? Yes, but it's emotionally, right? If you do a good job as a service, you repair something, the answer now is, yeah, it was about time that now the machine is running again, right? You never get any real positive feedback, right? You need to be, how to call it, intrinsically positive, right?
Motivated.
Yes. Which is easier in sales, I believe, because if you sell a solution and if you get a contract from the customer, it's already like
yes.
So in that sense, taking over service was a new challenge for me. Again, I learned a lot with customers. I learned a lot internally. And I was always lucky, and I'm still lucky today, to have colleagues who, as I said, balance my weak points quite well as well.
When you've grown up inside the company, everyone knows you. You're a known entity, as opposed to someone flies in from Germany, don't know Japan, they don't know that person, they don't know the team. Yeah. It's a real start from zero and go from there. Difficult process, but for you, you speak Japanese, you've lived here a long time, you know how to use chopsticks, you know all that sort of stuff, right? You know the culture, you know the manner, and so you sort of coming up from inside is smoother, but still. You've been a division head, now you're the total boss of everything, and you've got to get people to trust you with the whole organization as opposed to one division. What have you found works well to build trust with the team?
The first thing I believe is honesty, especially in difficult situations, right? We had quite some financially difficult situations where we also had to ask some people to go. That is not an easy job, but I always try to explain what we are doing, why we are doing it, and now it's the other way around, right? We want to be we want to be a sustainable, profitable legal entity here. We want to build our organization together. And when we have difficult times, either from the market side or also via the headquarters not being happy with some certain operational solutions here, then we openly address it. And when we get the people on our side, we also then, as I said before, we try to give them a certain security, right? Also, especially when we want them to take some risk, you need to give them some, how do you call it, a holding rope, so to say, where they come back. So
safety rope or something.
Safety rope, sorry. Yes. I think that works best. There is always this Japanese, how do you call it, harmony, wa, and this musukashi is the other way around. So people, yes, it's a different culture, but on the other hand, there is a danger that some part of the organization hides behind that. Because we are in Japan, we cannot do this, or because we are in Japan, we cannot do this. But when you drill it down to the point where you say, come on, every company has to have some profit. We need to have a certain long-term development, we need profit, and we need to develop ourselves, and we cannot just give whatever service free of charge or that free of charge. And at the end, this is how we get the people together to explain what we want to do and what we need to do. Honestly, sometimes as I said, I can be very frank, so then maybe it's also not very nice, but I think it's better to tell the people when difficult times are there that we have a difficult time instead of, how do you call it in English?
Beating around the bush.
Beating around the bush, right?
And that's a tricky one, isn't it? Because, at some point, as the boss, there's a limit on transparency, isn't there? Because if you share to the wrong level, then people start leaving the company, or they become very concerned about their job. The company's going to go down. So there's always a line. You can't cross that line. But no, where is the line? No one tells you where the line is. You have to work that out yourself. And given the situation, or given the circumstances, given the people, you work out where the line is. So you have that difficulty to know where that is.
Yes.
But what about culture? Because you have headquarter culture, and you have umbrella culture, global, Heidelberg global culture, and then you have Japan culture, and then you have Joerg culture. You run things around here the way you like it, and I run things in my company the way I like it, because I'm the boss. But I can't go against Japanese culture, and in my case, I can't go against Dale Carnegie global culture. So there are limits. But what have you found works well to build a culture?
Again, I don't find it so difficult because it's very logical to me. The closer we get to the customer, whether it's on the service side or on the sales side, the more we need to be Japanese.
Okay. What does that mean, be Japanese?
First, the language. Everybody speaks Japanese. That's one thing. We need to have all the Japanese documents. We deal in Japanese yen. We do the business like the customer buys from a Japanese supplier. So that is, in that sense, very Japanese. On the other hand, we always say we want to be a little bit deliberately different than our Japanese suppliers.
It's a differentiator.
Differentiator. For example, we can bring in a lot of information about printing in other countries worldwide and so on. But that is more like the contents, not the how. But the way we deal with Japanese customers is for sure very polite, the Japanese way. On the other hand, when you talk to headquarters, you sometimes have to be very straight, very demanding. So sometimes my Japanese colleagues have difficulties there because they are as friendly to the German headquarters as they are to the customer. And sometimes you have to tell the German guys, no, sorry, this solution will not work. We cannot do that, but we need this and this and this. You need to be then turning around and speaking in their language, so to say, and then building bridges. So we have developed more and more people who can do that, also Japanese colleagues.
And how do you do that? Because that culturally, we talked before about
Yeah.
hierarchy.
Yes.
Headquarters in a Japanese
Yes.
context is the top, and the branches are
Yes.
down here. So that person sitting in Japan
Yes.
is inferior
Yes.
to that person in headquarters by definition of just how the culture
Yeah.
works.
Yes.
And then how does that inferior person, tell the superior person that, no, we're not going to do it what they're suggesting, we're going to do it a different way, or we're not going to do it at all. How do you get them to actually overcome that reluctance to go against the hierarchical nature of the culture?
Again, maybe we are lucky, our German headquarters, the colleagues, board members, they are very open in at least listening and asking. So the people experience also our board members when they come over rather as not too high up in the hierarchy. Nevertheless, there are these difficulties. And I think you need to show, I bring people along in these meetings, I show how I do it, and try to get the colleagues to become more precise, not to talk, what do you say, if sometimes you find Japanese people who translate this to omoimasu into maybe, and maybe here, and talk very complicated English instead of saying, no, this is what we need, and this is the reason why we need it. But it's showing, it's doing with them, and sending sometimes people also overseas for some certain trainings and overtime.
Too, for Japanese people, when they want to explain something, or they want something, they feel, because they always want a lot of data, they always want a lot of detail. They think that the foreign guest or a foreign visitor will also automatically want all the detail. But as you say, probably not. They probably just need to be told, well, this is Japan. This is what works best. We should do it this way, this way, this way, and that's will be the best idea. Done. And the foreign visitor probably goes, oh, okay, great, good, do it. As opposed to, I don't need the whole song and dance, but that, again, tends to be a cultural difference of how we explain things,
yes.
isn't it? Yeah.
But I think we learn it, right? Very often we start rather with a conclusion, and then we bring the details if necessary. And some of the colleagues here would rather have all the details first presented. And then hope that the decision is going in the right direction. But that is something we need to help the colleagues and support the colleagues to do that better.
And if you were contacted by one of your friends in Europe, possibly Germany, telling you, hey, Joerg, I've got the job as president of my company in Tokyo, and I'm coming to Tokyo, but you've been there forever. You know all about Japan. I don't know anything about Japan. How can I be an effective leader? What would be some advice you'd give them?
Good question. Depends on the company and then the stage of the company, I would say, right?
So what do you mean by that? You mean in terms of what?
For example, we had that company in a stage where we had the change management, where we were in the disruptive phase, right? It's a different behavior when I need to disrupt current procedures than if I need to build up something. So I would always ask the question on what is your job, right? Why does the company want you to be here? Just as the administrator of the current business, or do you need
fixing something,
or do you need to fix something and do a serious restructuring? I think that, in my opinion, changes the.
And what would be the approach between the two? Contrast your approach between the two. If it was needed fixing, or if it just needs to be maintained, how would you?
I think one is fostering, right? If you have a certain business that runs, you need to make sure that you foster the next generation to take over what the current generation already does very well, depending on the age structure. And then it's rather about training and motivating the younger guys to take over and learn something new, and maybe motivating a little bit the experienced colleagues to hand over some of their experience. And when it's about really fixing a problem, very often when you come from a family business, it's a different way of managing, and it's, for example, also in our business, it used to be Like in the ramen shop, when you get your rice, right? Han rice was serviced, so you get the rice free of charge. And in the older times, some people were selling equipment and everything in service was free of charge, which at the end costed a lot of money. So we needed to fix that. And then it can be sometimes very tough, but you have to bring the topic up, how much it costs, why are we wasting that, how can we get the customer to accept a different way of business. And then it's whatever the Japanese culture is, maybe a little bit tougher to tell the people, hey, that's stop. So I have no easy fix and no golden bullet to explain. I can just explain what we did in the past.
What would be some other advice you'd give them?
Hopefully you can find 1 or 2 players in the company who can really support you, and even if they are Japanese, can tell you when you are maybe doing too much pushing and so on. So you need to have, at least I'm happy that I have it, that I have a few partners in the company who can tell me sometimes also, hey, Bauer-san, that's too much now wait a little bit, right? We do it a little bit different. So looking for the right players, I think, especially I cannot imagine you come from German headquarters and you take over 100, 200 people here and you come in directly as the president and you have no, how do you call it? No own people in the organization that are fighting with you, then
Power base, yeah.
You might be in a very difficult situation in Japan, I think.
Be very isolated.
Very isolated, and they can, especially then if you don't speak the language, you can be easily off the wrong track, I think.
And also, I guess you don't get access to the information you need. Because you don't know what to ask for.
Yes.
That's they know the answer, but you haven't asked the question.
Yes.
They're not going to volunteer the answer, so they're just waiting. If he asks me, I'll tell him, but if they don't, well, I'm not saying anything.
That's a very good example. I had to learn it also the hard way. Asking the right questions to get the right information, that is key, because sometimes you think you know what you want to know, you ask a question, then you also get something, but then there is something related to it and hidden and it's not presented to you. And asking different sources for the same information can be helpful sometimes in the company, right? So you might have your financial officer who gives you some information, but then you might want to have either you have direct system access or some other people on the sales or order management side, and you might want to verify some of the information.
There's also the problem too, if you don't speak Japanese, you're dealing through interpreters. And I noticed some of these Australians who are exporters that come up here that have interpreters with them, usually young women. And these usually young women with very little business experience. They're linguists. But because they spoke English, they would trust their business judgment. They'd be asking them business-related questions, which these people just didn't have the level of experience. They should be answering that sort of question, but they were asking them anyway. And they were giving opinions, of course. So there's always that danger of relying too much on the person who speaks English in a company. And often the people who speak English are not the power players inside the Japanese hierarchy either. So any advice around how to navigate that tricky area?
I'm not sure whether I can do the right advice, because I come in, as I said, knowing the organization, knowing the player and knowing some of the people, and I could always find a second person to ask to, and who I already had a trust relationship or could build a trust relationship. I would rather say, if you have the difficult task to turn around maybe an old-fashioned organization into a modern one, you hopefully know your business practices. Maybe you have a system and you know the processes, so that you can ask very precise questions, and you need to take the time to dig into it, ask the clarifying questions, and then come Kaizen maybe in the play. I would say you collect, normally that was my experience, you collect some data, you get some information. I say, does not really make sense, right? And then you dig in again, what about this and what about that? When you ask the question, you always get good answer. I think the positive thing in Japan is, I believe every salesperson, every service person wants to do a good job. They don't want to lie, or they don't want to tell you anything wrong, but sometimes they are just answering what you asked them for, as we discussed before, or they do not know better. And then sometimes, at least I never had the experience that somebody really wanted to trick me or wanted to do something wrong. I would say there were some people who were not openly willing to give me immediately all the information, yes. But then digging into it and asking and asking and asking. Persistence, is that the right English word?
Good term, yeah. And what about, should they learn Japanese?
Pardon?
Should they learn Japanese?
Yes.
Why is that?
If you only speak English, as you already described, you depend on the few English speakers in your organization, and you never know whether these are the real key players. And the other thing is, I find more important is, how do you get a direct information from the customer? Right? At least we are serving, our customers are SMEs, small and medium enterprises, very often privately owned. And sometimes it is necessary, at least on a management level, you want to know, let's say, an honest feedback from the customer, how he perceives your service or your salesperson. And if you cannot communicate in the local language, you don't get the honest answer. And you also do not get it in Japanese if you ask and meet the customer the first time, right? Again, you need to have a certain trust relationship. And once the customers recognize that you are helping them and that you are really eager to improve your services, your sales for the customer's benefit, then you also get the feedback.
And what have we found with AI now? Because AI is across everything, and it's rapidly moving.
Yes.
How has AI impacted your business?
We have first in our solutions, how we help the customers with our workflow solutions. But it's even smaller thing. Maybe it's not big AI at the beginning, right? But for years we use, for example, a certain system from a very big American player, starts with an M and ends with an S. And nowadays I can write in English into Teams some messages, and the Japanese get instant translation, or the other way around. So on that small level, you can easily exchange, even if you don't speak Japanese or if you cannot read and write Japanese, you can communicate, and that already works very well. The other thing is, now we have some younger salespeople. We have 5 young salespeople. We tell them to use in our case, it's Copilot, whatever, it's the company's decision. You can build much faster your presentations. You can build much faster your information about the customer.
It's a bit shocking, isn't it? I remember, because it's all pretty new, right? Still, I put something together, and I was going to send it was an email actually, I was going to send it to the client. It's got a complex email. And I thought, I'll just run it through ChatGPT before I send it. Oh my God. It cleaned it up, made it so much better. I'm looking at this going, oh my God, I'm useless. Look at this damn thing. It's replaced me already. It's doing a much better job than I am. And so the speed, the improvement, the quality, it's really something. And as you say, language too. Like, I write much more in Japanese now than I ever did, because I can. And for me to write in Japanese, I could write in Japanese, but the grammar wouldn't be correct. It'd take me forever. And I'm not a good typist anyway in English. But now I can say Bing, and I can read it to make sure the Japanese is saying what I want it to say, and shoot it out. So that's been a revolution for me.
I think we are back again to that. Are we risk averse, or are we trying to and challenging new things, right? I got to know a little bit about it from my children, seeing how they work in school or in university with these kind of things. So I got a little bit more interested in. And then on the other hand, is you saw the machinery in the showroom. The machinery nowadays actually interprets all the data presetting they get, let's say the PDF and some a little bit more information, and then the machine itself interprets how to set up the next job, and it rather tells the operator which manual task the operator has to do when and in which sequence. And that is now already for 4 or 5 years what's coming in, and there is more to come in this kind of let's call it AI revolution. But I think it will be beneficial for Japan because we need to expect, 11 million workers are missing in 2040. That's the estimation. And we see that already printing industry, you can imagine that operating such big machine, nice, people like to do it. But then later on there comes the book binding, and there comes paper dust, and it's not so nice environment. And you can already see today a lot of people don't want to do this kind of work anymore. And then automation and this kind of solution will help our Japanese customers to overcome the shortage of labor. And on our side, you see, imagine you're a young engineer. In former times, you had to learn English very hard, then you had to go to Germany for a lot of trainings. Nowadays, yes, you can still go, but before you go, you already have an online training. You can do it, if necessary, in Japanese, if your English is not so good. You can translate all the document instantly. Maybe the quality is not perfect, but
it's pretty good though.
Good enough to understand.
Google Translate used to be fairly bad, and I sort of gave up on it, so I stopped using it. And then when ChatGPT 4 came out, I think it was, I used that. I was shocked. Yeah. I was shocked at how good it was. I'm like, gee, wow, this is really improved.
Yeah, there are a lot of solutions.
Really improved a lot.
Yes.
And in terms of, there's always a lot of stress in business, a lot of stress for people at the top like yourself. What have been some things you've found worked well for you to deal with stress? How do you deal with stress?
That's a good question.
Apart from schnapps or something.
Yeah. No, we are not discussing that one. Also, the other solution, maybe you don't like, I sit on my motorbike, I put the helmet on and go into the mountains. The good news with the motorbike is you don't get a call. Nobody calls you. There are always times where there is a lot of stress. It can come from not achieving the targets. It can come from any environment outside. How do I deal with it? I try to come very quickly to rather what can I do instead of being concerned about things. So the question is, if there comes an earthquake, I cannot do anything about it, right? The FX rate, I cannot do anything about it. I can work with it or need to work with it. So I try, in my nature, always try, however difficult it is, what are the options I have together with my colleagues to improve that. So to get it down to things I can digest and I can handle. And sometimes, and that's why I said again, that is my weak point, maybe I'm too emotional, and then sometimes you hear a shout from my office or when I'm at home from my room that that can also happen, but I try to overcome that as quickly as possible. Again, talking with colleagues, in my opinion, helps very often. Again, we have a good team, right? A good management team where we then sometimes can also share the issues. Right now we are really stressed because of this and this and that. How do we deal with it? That is very helpful as well.
What would be your definition of leadership?
Describe whatever you want to develop, the target, the goal, as easy to understand as possible. As I said, it's not a sophisticated target to say, but we want to be sustainably profitable. How do we get there? And try to convince other people step by step to go with you and to trust that you take care of them, so to say, in the way. But as you already found out, I'm not having a lot of sophisticated theory and just thinking the people need to digest it, right? And if we, as responsible unit managers or leaders, are standing there and having all kind of great ideas, but we cannot make it digestible for the people working with us, then it will not work. Then we cannot turn it into tangible outcome.
Well, Joerg, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Great chat today. And so please join us again for our next episode of Japan's top business interviews.